This is our 2021 2E track on all things 2E. And Jonathan is going to be talking to us about using JSON with 2E. You know, just like that IBM lady was talking from IBM, talking about using different things. Well, we're going to try to use some different things here. We're going to talk not of your typical general 2E stuff necessarily. We want to try to get the envelope expanded a little bit. There might be things that we've used in the past that you know, are good to use or that are interesting. And so that's sort of what we're going to be trying to do, is come up with newer things or different things using some of our RPG, other open source background, and pull it into 2E so that we can use it there. Perfect. So with that, Jonathan, I will let you go ahead. And if there's any time that, you know, the quality of the sound isn't good enough, or the picture disappears or something, let us know, because we can't see everything that you see. So
I hope everyone's seeing like I guess this is the Austin skyline here. Yes. Okay.
Beautiful Austin.
All right, because I'm looking both at my laptop, which has all kinds of other stuff on it, and the picture of my smiling countenance. And then there's a big, large screen television in front of me so that the speaker can see what's going on. Anyway, Mark asked me to talk about using JSON in 2E. I had the opportunity in my previous life to use JSON both. I was creating JSON to consume a web service. I was sending data up to one, and it was returning data back to me. And then there was a second instance where I was getting a huge JSON file, JSON packet from someone else, and having to take the whole thing apart. I talked about parsing it out at the last conference. This one's going to talk more about how you can use some open source you can get for the IBM to create a JSON packet, and then of course send it up to an actual web service. So I think I'll try these. Side note, don't get old. You need 2 sets of glasses. Not fun. All right, why is it not responding? All right, I guess it doesn't. Oh, all right. There we go. Okay, so the objective is to demonstrate how to use open source HTTP API to allow RPG programs to communicate with the web, and demonstrate how to use open source JSON translator, YAJL, which stands for yet another JSON language, library, to create the payloads, and demonstrate how to use the YAJL to parse the returned responses. Why? Web services are becoming an integral part of the IT landscape. We've done Mark and I have done quite a bit of work on this in other areas. JavaScript object notation, or JSON, is becoming the data transfer protocol of choice, replacing SOAP, which I found myself. And you can use these, you can consume them in RPG programs, be it 2E or free or handcrafted stuff, through the use of 2 freeware packages, HTTP API, which allows you to communicate with the web via HTML, and YAJL, which can be used to either create the JSON packets or interpret incoming packets. Both packages are courtesy of one of the luminaries in the IBM world. His name is Scott Clement. Thank you very much. And here, because everyone's getting a copy of this, here are the URLs for the HTTP API tool and his YAJL tool. What you get in the YAJL download is a README file, and then a compressed folder YAJL IFS, and then 2 save files, YAJL lib or YAJL lib 7.2, which are released dependent. The first one is for anything prior to V7R2. The second one is for 7.2 and higher. So the minimum level, regardless, is v6r1, and the folder YGL-IFS contains the original C code and his port to I5OS, if you want to take a look at the C code. And I recommend sticking with the appropriate save file as it's the easiest approach to put this on your system. You just restore the save file, you get all the components you need. So first off, creating JSON. Here are the commands that are furnished in the package. YJL gen open, which opens the generator. YJL underscore begin object, which starts a JSON object, which we would think of perhaps as a data structure. YJL underscore begin array, which starts a JSON array. Add bool to add a Boolean value. Add character, add char for adding a character string, or add num for adding a numeric value. And then finally, save buff to write the JSON document to the IFS. So that's pretty much how this works. In order to use it, you have to open the generator up, start a JSON object, and then depending on the data involved, a combination of the begin array, add Boolean, add char, or add number. And then, then there's also to end the array, end the object, and close the generation object, or close the generator. My apologies. So how do we use this stuff? First thing you have to do is you need one header specification record. So here you can see the binding director. The binding directory is YAJL. Decimal edit is 0, and option source statement. And then you also have to have one include line to include the object YAJL underscore H to your code. YAJL underscore H is like a copy member that will drop in all of the prototypes needed for all of his work. Now, this is from work I had done before. To begin a JSON header, notice first thing you do is you say YJL gen open star on. Begin object, nothing in the parentheses, and then begin object, and the object's called rate string. And then I added a character. What you're seeing here is the first parameter is the tag. The second parameter is your actual data. So you're seeing what I'm doing is I'm adding character data of ID code coming from field ID code, and I'm trimming it both sides. Ship date didn't need to be trimmed. SCAC, which this was a freight application. SCAC is the standard character. I don't know what it means, but all freight companies have a 4-digit SCAC code, as it's called now. So this was sending in the SCAC code. Origin zip, which was character-based data, even though it was numeric information. Origin state, which was the state involved, and destination zip, and then the destination state. What this application was designed to do was get a freight rate. So what information did I need to provide the web service? The ID code, who we are we allowed to talk to this thing? The ship date, obviously. The SCAC code, which carrier to look up? The origin zip code. All right, where's it starting from? The origin state. They needed that, and then they wanted the destination zip code and the destination state. Then I began an array for the class weight. And here I was doing the detail. And inside the class weight, I had a beginning object, a new object, and inside one was the class for the freight class. Again, those are normally two-digit numbers. We were using class 60 and class 70. And then the weight, again, and weight was the one field in this particular web service that they accepted as numeric data. Again, the service you're talking to dictates how you send the data. And a lot of them, everybody uses character data. So my other code, of course, had methods to convert numeric data from my actual data into strings that I could send in. And then this particular subroutine just put in the freight class and the weight. And you could have, depending on a particular shipment, you could have more than one of those in there. In our application, typically we did not. Our freight class was usually always one per shipment, but it could have had multiples. And then what are known in the freight industry as accessorial charges. And here, I again, begin an object and the, the code. And accessorial charges would be, do you need a lift gate for delivery or inside delivery or residential delivery? Believe it or not, that exists. Or prior notification. All of that costs extra money. So what you had to do is report, are any of these needed, and with the code, and then close it up. Once it was all done, the next thing you do is I gave it a file name. And here, what you're seeing me set up is I had a known location in the IFS, which was /rate request /freight. And then I concatenated in, this field was actually a 7-digit order number that I used as the identifier, and then the JSON suffix. And then once I had the file name created, I used the save buffer command to save the object that had been created as that file name, and then close the generator. And this was the end result. If you take a look, notice the whole thing is in curly braces. So there's an open curly brace where you see then rate string, another open curly brace. The version is there, the source. Those were hard-coded fields. I did not, those were put in, I had literals for that. And then the ID code, and there's our secret handshake. In this case, day of month, the 27th, account, a whole bunch of other stuff, the ship date. And again, the format the application wanted was month, day, 4-digit year, separated by slashes. The SCAT code, ODFL, which if anyone is interested is Old Dominion Freight Lines. The origin zip, 47918, which I can tell you is a small town in central Indiana, origin state of Indiana. And this shipment was going to Rhode Island, zip code 02804. Class weight, freight class was 70, 3,055 pounds. And the accessorial rate, the code was hazmat. As I worked for a company that made lead acid storage batteries, and this was a shipment of 3,055 pounds of what would be known in the industry as flooded batteries, hence class 70, which is a more expensive freight rate, and the code hazmat, because as they tipped over, you had an acid spill, as opposed to what's known as the valve regulated lead acid storage battery, VRLA, more commonly known as the maintenance-free battery in your car. That's pretty much it. What I did not show is how you develop all that data. The assumption here, of course, is that you have an application where you're reading this from whatever database files you need, but you're getting the data and you know in advance. And how you work with this is you have to get a schema from the web service itself. It's your roadmap on how to build the data. Once you know that, you know the tags you have to put in and how it's going to accept the data. After that, it's pretty much put it together. The next piece is with HTTP API, which I demonstrated in a previous seminar, is that's a way that you can set up and you can do an HTTP call to the web from within RPG. And you simply send the file out, and that's the end of the story. Now, what happens on the way in is a web service then will typically send you a packet back. And in a previous discussion, I showed how you can then take it apart and parse out the information. And where it gets interesting is the examples you'll see in much of the literature always work with a very simple JSON packet, much like the one I showed you. That while was a real world packet outbound, the inbound stuff can often be much, much more complicated. And the one I did last year, it was, you had data structures 2-3 levels down through the thing. And then it gets involved with how you iterate through it to find the piece you want. And it can get rather fun, believe me. But I was only to do a lightning talk, so I've done about the 10 minutes. That's it for right now.
Yeah, go ahead and keep your system there.
Okay.
And thank you, Jonathan. That was good. It was good to see how to use JSON and where we could actually call this from within our RPG and into
Yeah,
you could make those into execute user programs and then call them right.
Oh yeah,
and
the
two-way
thing,
application.
yes. That's why I showed you the header, and 2E also knows how to deal with include statements.
Yep.
It just drops all that code in automatically.
All right, great. All right, so our next talk is going to be by Russel Berkeley, and he's going to be talking to us about how to upgrade from 8.7 to 8.7.2 on 2E. It's not, Jonathan and I have experience doing that, and it's not a straightforward process. And so Russell's going to give us a little bit of a demo and understanding about what has to be done, because, we might as well stay current in 2E as much as we can. And all right, Russell, so go ahead and take over, and
yep.
We'll see.
You guys can you see my screen?
Yes,
here?
we can see your screen. Yep.
I'm going to start the presentation. I'm probably going to go off the video, but you can hear me okay?
Oh, very well.
We can hear you. Can everybody else on the call hear? Can someone let us know if you can hear okay?
And just before I were to start the 2E part of this, the upgrade, how many are still on 8.7 and have not moved to 7.1 or 7.2? Just in the room, I guess, to show of hands, just want to get an idea.
What are you guys on, Eamon?
We are on 8.7.1.
8.7.1. Okay.
Okay.
8.7.1. Okay, so we're all at 8.7.1 or above in the room.
Okay. This will apply to you too. I'm basically going from 8.7.0 to 8.7.1 and then to 8.7.2 all in one go. So let me just take the video off so I don't distract myself. And the mic's open, so please, if you want me to stop or speed up, slow down, whatever. Because of time and because my other presentations have a lot more goodies in it or trick and treats in it, I may fast forward the demo a little bit just to speed up. You guys are going to get this presentation, so you'll be able to take a look. Now,
I'll just put a timer on so we're sure we are where we're at with our time. So.
Perfect. Okay. So my presentation in general, all three of them, my theme is, if I knew then what I know now. That would be pretty amazing, right? Last year's theme was think outside the box. So my topics were all geared to twisting 2E or your applications to do stuff that normally you would have come back and said, oh, this can't be done, and just walked away. That was think outside the box presentation. This now, it's, if I only knew then what I knew now, I could have come up with some really good applications. So I want you to always, with all my presentations, keep that theme in your head. what I'm going to show in this presentation with the upgrade, as well as the other two presentations I have, is may not necessarily be specific to you, but I want you to think of the idea, and I want you to plant those seeds to see how you could use some of these concepts in your day-to-day life. That's the idea. That's what I want you to take home from this. I want you to be able to go home and say, let me try this that Russ showed me to do because it looked pretty cool. And oh my God, it worked. Wow. Okay. It may not be specific to my company, sorry, which is what I'm showing you, but something may trigger an idea in your head. Okay. You can read this later. You don't really care about me. You probably want to get into the meat. So let's just blow through that. So I'm going to talk about the first one, my first talk, which is upgrading 870 to 1 and then to 2. And as someone said on the call, it's not that simple. So for me, I've been in the 2E world, if you read the previous one, for about 30 years. I worked for Sign-On Professional Services. They used to helicopter me into companies to upgrade their 2E to the next version. So I got a little bit of experience in doing 2E upgrades. At least 5 or 6 years of my life was doing that. And yet I had problems doing this upgrade, which blows my mind. And that's why I thought it'd be important to share this with you guys as to my experience. So I want to start with just showing you something here. This is an email that I started on April 9th, where I just asked, hey, I'm a 2E paid customer on maintenance. Can you help me with my upgrade to 8.71? And Broadcom responded back that they don't do that. They suggested I go to this link and figure it out myself. Well, after going to that link and it not working, this is how many emails it took me from April 9th till May 3rd until I was able to upgrade. So you can imagine, that is just, in my opinion, not acceptable. Okay, so after I've done all the twists and turns to get something that is cohesive, I figured I might as well step back, do it all again, and record it, which is what you're going to see is basically a screen recording of me upgrading and the processes I took, and where I didn't do what the document said because it was wrong or it didn't make sense or it didn't work. So I just trying to cut out all that fat and just present to you with the meat of how to upgrade from one version to the next, and how to downgrade if you run into a problem, which obviously I did multiple times and had to go back in order to, do my day-to-day work until Broadcom came back, days, weeks later with a resolution. So anyway, I don't know if you've experienced this with tickets with Broadcom, but it's not the fastest solution, as you can tell. I do second level support. If I had emailed to a client this many times on a problem, I don't think I would get a really good rating. So that's my take on it. So let's start the demo and see what we're up against here. So the first thing I'm going to do is log in as myself, R. Berkeley, and just show you that I'm in 8.7. So just a little trick to get into 2E, and I'm just going to show you as a designer or programmer. 8.7, 1632 is the PTF level. I'd like you to just write down that 1632 because I found it was interesting when I finished all this, I was still at 1632, but let's move on. So we're going to go in as a QSEC offer. And I'm going to create 3 libraries because I'm going to create a library with 870, 871, 872. They're all empty, as you can see. But this is how I started the process. Setting up my libraries, how I'm going to capture the product. Then I'm going to create save files. Oops. So in my 870 library, I'm going to create a save file for my Y1 sys, my Y2 sys, and all my models. Okay, so these are just empty save files right now. You'll notice there's a Y3 SY. That's me. So there's a little trick in the side. I have a Y3 sys, and I usually have that under my QTemp in all my job descriptions and everything, and library lists in general. That's where I store my auto name standards and my convert model values and my messages. Just makes life easier. Okay, so I'm using PDM to create a few little shortcuts here. One is an SL. If you saw that, it was to do a save lib. So it allows me to just quickly do SL and it'll save lib into these save files. Okay, and believe me, just being someone that's done upgrades for a while, this is a bit of a godsend. This is my little cheat sheet from the 1900s, I guess we could say. So now I'm going to look at all my 2E models that I have out there. So again, if I go Y star, and that doesn't work because I probably typed it wrong. Oh no, apologies. I don't have a good screen video editor. I should have pulled this out, but my library list is QSEC offer, so it doesn't have anything. Okay, this should work. So make a note of all your 2E models. And basically, you're going to create save files again into this library for all those. So I'm just going to do one here, I believe. Utility, that's a good one. Okay, so you're going to want to do this for all your models. So basically, I'm doing a pre-backup of my 2E product and my models, because this will become a godsend if you have to back out. Okay, next part is kind of tricky. You need to have this URL link, which I have no idea how you guys would normally get this. I think this was sent to me from Mark, but so I'm just going to play around here. I used this last year, this QR code-monkey.com website. I use this for a lot of stuff. I've kind of gone QR code crazy. You should see my office at home right now. It's QR codes everywhere for stuff. But here's the QR code. If you want to just snap that, that'll take you to the URL that I'm dealing with. So it's a little side trick just to keep you guys entertained. But I'll just go right into it here. This is the Broadcom now that I'm going into. I'm trying to get the 2E download. So let's see, cumulative patches. Yeah, okay. So let's say I'm 7.0 and I want to just go to 7.2. Well, from what I can tell in the release notes, from what I read here, I have to be on 7.1 in order to go to 7.2. You can't just go straight up. Anyone knows differently, pipe up. But as a result, I went 7.1, then 7.2. So we'll go into 7.1. And then you go to the installing. This is where it gets messy. You got to really be careful with what you select here. So there's a URL. Here it is, Broadcom Solutions page. You got to click on this guy. In other words, you don't want to click on the install 2E because the first thing it'll tell you to do is clear your Y1 sys library, which is not what you want to do. So yeah. Okay, so you can see I'm on here and I can't download it. I can't do anything because I'm not logged in. So you will need to go and get a license key certificate from Broadcom. It takes about 3 days for them to give it to you, even though I had it last year. Apparently they reset all of our license keys and they didn't realize they did that. So it took several days before they figured that out. So I'm now in my world on day 4, okay, where I'm now at a point where I can download the zip file. Okay, so forget the cart stuff, just download it straight to your PC. Yeah, I think I fast forward this video a little bit here. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm downloading the 871, and I'm also gonna, at the same time, since I'm logged on and I'm authenticated, I'm gonna download 872. So I'll have the 2 zip files on my PC. Now you think it's a simple matter of just going back, but no, basically, I mean, you gotta cut and paste that original link. So again, I want you guys to experience the pain. So hopefully it'll be easier for you if you're doing this. So I'm going back. Now I'm going to the 7.2. And I'm going to install. And I believe I'm still logged in. So yeah, let's see. I'll tell you now, the Broadcom website navigating is extremely slow, as you can tell. So I've stopped the video a few times in order to speed up this thing. But great. So we download the code. Okay. Let's go to my PC now. Here's the 2 zip files. I have it in a 2e zip. So I'm going to unzip them into separate folders. For those who may have already done this or may already know this, there's a few tips and tricks on FTPing to the 400 that I'd like to share. So hang tight. Okay, so that was a bit of a mistake. I want to download it into a separate folder so they don't collide on one another. So I'll download the 7.1 and the 7.2 into separate folders. That's all the 7.1s. That's all the 7.2s. So this was one of the things that got me by just using the install instructions. It said clear lib y1sy and then restore y1sy. Well, there is no y1sy in the upgrade. So that's why you kind of caused me to send in another request to Broadcom to say what's going on. And then they sent me to a different URL to do the installation to do the upgrade. They thought I was doing an original. So anyway, FTPing. This is a cool trick. I use this for FTPing all sorts of stuff to the IBMI. If I say 400, you know it means IBMI, okay? FTP-S, and then I create this text file. So here's what the text file looks like. Open, you put in your IP address for your 400, the user ID and the password to authenticate to. Bin prompt, you do the quote site name format 0. My local PC is navigate to my local PC, then navigate to my AS400 library. Then I have to change the name format to 1. You have to do it that way. You can't just change it to 1 automatically. Broadcom wants you to do it 1 save file at a time to upload. If you do an mput*.save file, mput means kind of like a copy star.star. So it'll take all the stuff that's in the save files and FTP them up as 1 command instead of copying them several times. So let me show you the upload here because I had a pause in that bat file just to get it all set up. Just walk you through that. And here it goes. Now the upload for me, I'm working from home, took me about a half hour for version 7.1 and another half hour to do 7.2. But because I did it all in that one little bat file, this is called coffee break. This is when I went and took a coffee, came back, waited for the save files to get onto my 400. Oh, see, I said it, IBMI. I said I wouldn't say 400 during this conference. Okay, so let me just fast forward a bit here. So there's my 870. Okay, so I went to the 7.1 here library and the same will go into the 8.7.2 library for those versions. So now I'm going to have to do restore libs. Before I do restore libs, because I've done this multiple times, I did delete libs. So I created a shortcut called DL and then an RL to restore. Right. Again, this is me being lazy, but so what I would do here is the DL of all these to make sure they don't exist, the libraries don't exist, and then I do a RL to do a restore lib of each save file to put them into the proper libraries. The only one that you don't do this on is the YCA. So I think I refer to that a little later on. So if if the libraries don't exist, just blank it out, continue on until they're all good to go. And yeah, you can see except the YCA because that goes into the IFS. So I'm gonna get rid of that and then just restore lib. Boom, boom, boom. Let that run. Okay, so now I'm going to the work link YCA. I'm going to rename this to 870. I have no idea what this is used for because I don't really go use this type of these functions on the IFS. I think it has to do with web interface, but this is how you would restore the YCA file to the IFS folder.
Russell, I think I read the stuff. I think they're putting in some of the goodies they use for creation of web services now. That's what's in there.
Okay. Thanks. I had a feeling that's what it was. Don't use it, but that's how you do it. Okay. Everyone with me so far? Okay. Now, because now we get kind of weird. What you need to do is change library lists and make sure the library list looks exactly like that. With the new PTF libraries at the top before the Y1 sys and Y2 sys. So then you can do the Y apply PTF. So this will upgrade your Y1 sys library. And then you do the Y apply PTF on each model of each of your 2E models. That's where that utility is there. That's my one model. And that goes on the Y2 sys. Remember, I made a save file of my utility model library in that other library, the 870. So I have backup. Oh, look at that. I'm even showing you to make sure. Yeah, so I took all my models. I've got save files in there for all of them. So I gave you another cheat. E2 is going to do the Y apply PTF on the models. So I go to my 870 model and I do an E2 on all my models. Again, because I've done this for so many times in my life that this has just worked out to be the easiest way to do things. Okay, so those are all my models. And then if I do an F4, it'll show you it's basically doing a Y apply PTF into Y2 sys for all my models. Boom, done, as opposed to typing them one at a time. Okay, let's look at our library lists. So these two guys, if you read the documentation, Broadcom wants you to put those two libraries in all your job descriptions, all your library lists, all your CLs, whatever you have, just so it's above your Y1 sys, Y2 sys. I'm saying, no, I'm going to put this library into my Y1 sys and the other library into my Y2 sys. And that way I don't have to change my job descriptions. Okay. I have a backup of Y1 sys, Y2 sys, so I can revert back. So instead of modifying all these job descriptions, I'm going to go and move all these objects into Y1 sys. So another cheat, I'm going to do a delete object, hard code Y1 sys, the name and the type, because I want to make sure if they already exist there, when I do the move object, I want to make sure I'm kosher. And and there's no problem. I do it as a move object. Again, this is just because I've learned from my mistakes. When I do just a copy and replace yes, the authorities get all messed up, and then it doesn't work. And then Broadcom says, oh, your authority is wrong on this object. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to delete whatever's in Y1 sys and then move all this stuff across. Okay, so F5, empty. Good. And then I do the same thing. I'm going to change those two DO, MO, PDM things to make it Y2 sys Y instead. In my youth, I actually did all this as a big CL command. But when I went from company to company to do it, you'd always have to make the modifications. I just thought it was easier to do this. And the customers some of them, it was kind of funny. They didn't even know you could do this in PDM. So it was an eye opener for them. So maybe someone out there didn't know you can do this. If not, there's a trick for you. So I'm just testing right now before I do the full thing, because for some reason I like to test before I do the full blown thing. So let's delete, make sure everything deletes, and then MO to move. I'm just going to fast forward this a little bit because you guys don't need to see me removing this. Good, it's gone. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to log in now. Over there, I'm on QSec off. I'm going to log in as myself. Check things out. Make sure life's good. So on 1635, oh, so I was wrong. I went from 1632 to 1635, but you did see it was 871 now. So when I upgrade, the first thing I usually do is I convert messages, convert values, all that stuff there to make sure those work. And then the next thing I do, this leads into another presentation, HAL 42. For those old timers, you may know what HAL 42 stands for. You 20-year-olds probably won't understand that code. So I'm going in the zoom and the F7 because if you didn't do what I did of moving those objects into the Y1, Y2, it would have crashed at that point. That was another message or another call to Broadcom. Yeah, so just verifying that screen design's all working fine and all that's great. So in this case, it worked. I'm just going to fast forward this stuff because I don't know where I am on time. Yeah. The reason that happened is because my library list, again, QSec offer library list wasn't set up right. Okay, so now I'm at 7.1. I'm going to move to 7.2.
Got 10 minutes to do it.
No problem. For the most part, it's just repeating what I just did. So here again, I'm copying these save files from my 7.0 to my 7.1 library. Okay, because all these save files are all my models, and they're going into the 7.1 library because now this is going to become my pre-library save of before 7.2. There's no data in the save files because I used 3 and I said data no. So now I'm in 7.1. Here's my models that have all been upgraded to 7.2. These save files are empty. So now I use the SL command to do a save. And all this is going to do is save these models that are now at 7.2, or sorry, at 7.1. It's going to save them into this library. That way I can move back if I have to move back to 7.1, or if I go back to the 7.0, I can restore back all those save files, and it would be as though I didn't do any upgrade at all. I have done that multiple times between April and May until I got this thing working. So there's the path. For the most part, these steps are identical. I'm going to go through the whole process again. This time, you'll see I just renamed it now to 871 this time. Oh, there was one little trick here. You got to remember, this is a funny thing for those who like to automate things like me. Let me finish this last part here. So now that I've got that, I'm just going to restore that one. Good to go. Change library. This time it's 872 library list I need. Oh, geez, I'm sorry about that. I think I was close to being done. Yeah, this one. Okay, so this one's an important thing. Let me pause it here because you'll notice they changed it. They changed it from why apply PTF to why apply PTF 872. I guess they were thinking that you'd still keep your 871 library. So I just took that off and the YC because I'm going to just do this as an RL, but I'm going to change it to why apply PTF. Because once it's all applied, you don't need to do it again. So why keep extra things on your 400? So
Well, I'll wait till you're done. I do have a question though.
Sure. Go ahead.
My interpretation of all these instructions were that if you created a new data model, you still had to do the YAPY-PTF to get it to work right. Now, was that not your finding?
If I create a brand new data model, I would be running in 872. So creating the model should do it. I've not created, I'll tell you now, I haven't created a new model since upgrading. But even so, you would be doing a why apply PTF to your 872 world because everything else is in 872.
Oh yeah, we have to keep
Does that
them
make
around
sense?
because we're often working with customer models.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
We work with multiple levels.
If that's the case, yeah. And modify this, tweak it however you want. At least what I'm giving you here is a condensed version of about 152,000 page document where you only need about this little notepad worth of information.
That was a nice download they gave us.
Download, that was funny.
And I think you were probably the instigator to the supplemental PTF to 871 that I discovered.
Me?
Yeah, I think your adventure with them prompted them because they had a PTF out, a supplemental library put on top of all this stuff before 872 came out that solved that problem you had when you went into doing things inside, where it would crash.
Yep. Now, I wasn't planning to upgrade to 872 initially. After we got everything to work, I saw 872 was available and I asked, should I upgrade? And they said, everything's working, don't upgrade. Well, then later, so here's my funny story because I think I have 2 seconds left. I don't know about you guys with 870 or 1, but sometimes when I'm running things in debug, I'm going to stop this right now because this is basically, you've seen all this. After I exit debug, I would find that my session would go into an endless loop, and I couldn't break out of it. I'd have to go to another session and work user job to see what's going on, and it would just create this huge job log of thousands of pages. I thought the problem was an IBM problem. I had sent a PTF or PMR to IBM. They couldn't figure it out. Then they asked me what this command was, and I said, this is a 2E command. I ended up going to Broadcom, and they said, yeah, we know about this problem. You have to upgrade to 872 to fix it. So that's why I upgraded. So if you guys experience something where you're debugging or STR debug. I can't remember the command off the top of my head, and you come out of it and your session just goes into this haywire loop. 872 is supposed to fix it. So there you go. That's my lightning talk. The other two will come up, I guess, later on, but there's my contact info. I did not give Broadcom, sorry, I did not give First Data my presentation yet because the presentation is all fluff. My presentation is really these three screen captures flows. So I will send those up to the appropriate sources to share when the time comes at the end of this conference. But
yeah, Eamon hasn't given his to me either yet. Your PowerPoints. Yeah, he finished his about an hour ago.
So I think I have how many? I have 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left.
There's 3 minutes left.
Was there any other questions before moving on? I guess I'm coming back later, right?
Yeah, well, you'll be on later today. Yeah.
Okay, so stop the share.
Yeah, any questions from anybody?
Yeah. We're coming from 8.5 to, so do we need to go all the steps in between?
Sorry, you're coming from version
8.5.
8.5 to 8.7.
Yep.
I'm thinking, I believe we came initially, this is 7 years ago, moved up from like a version of 2E that was 10 years old to 8.7. And I didn't have an issue. It seemed to have been cumulative then. I think back then it was CA and they were a little more on the ball, and I had good help from the originators, the gods, if you will. So I don't believe so, but I still would encourage you to do that first part of creating that pre-library of your 2E, your Y1, Y2 sys, and all your models in the save file so that you can always restore back if there is a problem.
Cool.
Now,
yeah,
last year
I agree. You should be able to do it okay. I've moved several models from even 8.1 and prior all the way up to 8.7 and had no issues with that.
Okay. Now, the other thing I haven't tested, I remember last year when Broadcom actually cared about this conference. Sorry about that, but that's how I feel. He mentioned that they removed the license check. I have not tested that because I know there are licensing libraries in my 400 IBMI.
Yeah,
I don't know.
True. It is true. We actually installed it on a 400 that has no license on it just to test it out. And
good to know.
And you can do it.
Okay, so theoretically then, because we're all buds here.
Yeah.
I have a development AS400. I have a production AS400, two separate entities. So if I installed sign on my production environment, I would then have access to Y work file and the Y1 menuing to be able to make changes.
Well, we've kind of run into that a little bit ourselves. Now, maybe with what you did by merging all of those objects into Y1SY, Y2SY will eliminate the problem, but we necessarily can't do that because, as Mark said, we're dealing with oftentimes customer models of various vintages. So we had to leave all the libraries separately. You cannot, if you're trying to run 870 on a machine where you don't have license keys installed, it will fail. You have to have those 871 pieces on top of it, and then it turns off the check, but that means you're running 871, and we found that you can't go. We couldn't go directly from, say, a pre-version 8 model to 871. You had to stop at 870. So you might try that and you get back with me, because we're now in this kind of the same boat you are, because CM First now has two serial numbers and 4 partitions.
Yeah.
My thought there would be, instead of naming them Y1 sys, Y2 sys, in another lifetime in the 1900s, I would create Y1 sys 60, Y2 sys 60, and then based on the job description or library list, that's how it stayed.
Yeah.
In each version, instead of using the generic Y1 sys, Y2 sys. So there's a thought too. I haven't tested this stuff with the new stuff.
I think that would work because I know I've had different versions of Y1. I've had like Z1, X1.
Exactly, because they told you to do that back in the 1900s.
No, not because they told me to do it, but because I wanted different versions of sign-on running. So
yeah.
I had it installed in different libraries like that. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, good. I made my time limit.
Yeah.
But send
right,
questions if you have anything else, please.
Yeah, please send us questions, and any questions before we take a few-minute break and then start up the other session.
My only question is based on that IBM presentation of how long between versions. I'm trying to think how long between our next version of 2E.
That's not predictable. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Let's take about a 5-10 minute break, and then we'll get started with the next session.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right.